goes. And she'll take the first three-pointer and knock it down. Shooter for shooter. 3 for 3, but look out, Aaliyah Boston penetrating. Thornton with a 3 on the way. And the first triple-double for rookie Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark has had a target on her back since the moment she stepped into a gymnasium with a basketball and started making shots that defenses had no framework to stop. Every level she has reached, every room she has walked into, every practice court she has shown up on, there has been someone waiting with a test designed to prove that this time the level would be too high, this time the competition would be too seasoned, this time the environment would finally expose the gap between the hype and the reality. It has never worked, not once, and what happened inside the Team USA practice facility recently is the most stunning version of that story yet, because the veterans who showed up to that gym were not rookies trying to establish themselves. They were not mid-level professionals adjusting to a new system. They were the most accomplished group of women's basketball players ever assembled under one roof. Players with Olympic gold medals hanging in their homes. Players who have been doing this at the highest level for longer than some of Clark's fans have been watching basketball. Players who had every reason to believe that practice with the national team would be the one environment where Caitlin Clark would finally have to slow down and earn her place quietly like everyone else does. What happened instead is what always happens. She did the impossible.
Clark.
She made the veterans look at each other with the kind of expression that only
Slings
appears
it over to
when something
home,
occurs
wide open
that
three.
cannot be immediately explained.
So the defense
She made
was
the coaching
shading to
staff
them.
stop running the drill. And she did all of it with the same composure she brings to every single environment she enters. The calm of a player who is not surprised by her own ability, even when everyone else in the building absolutely is. Trash talk Caitlin Clark at your own risk. It never ends well for them. Let's break down every moment from that practice that the veterans are still talking about. The first thing you need to understand about what a Team USA practice actually looks like is that it is not a friendly warm-up session where everyone is easing into the competition gradually and keeping things light. These practices are intense, physical, contested at every possession, and built around the assumption that every player on the floor has already proven they belong at this level. Veterans do not give rookies or newcomers a grace period in this environment. There is no gentle initiation. You come in and you either hold your own immediately or you spend the session being shown clearly and repeatedly why the pecking order exists the way it does. The culture inside a national team camp is built by years of shared sacrifice and international competition, and the players who have been through multiple Olympic cycles together have a bond and a shorthand and a competitive standard that newcomers have to earn their way into, not simply show up and claim. Caitlin Clark understood all of that before she arrived, and understanding it did not change a single thing about how she played. She walked into that gym and Diana Taurasi was watching. That detail matters more than almost anything else about that practice session because of what Taurasi represents in this sport. Multiple Olympic gold medals. A professional career that has spanned generations. A player who has seen every kind of talent come through national team camps, and who has a very precise, very experienced eye for separating what is real from what is constructed by narrative. Taurasi had been on record before the practice with characteristically blunt thoughts about Clark's transition to the national team level. The sentiment, delivered with the kind of directness that has always defined Taurasi, was that the practice court would be a different world than the WNBA had been, that the players in this gym had been competing at a level Clark had not yet experienced, and that reality was coming whether Clark had prepared for it or not. Reality is coming, that was the message. It landed in every corner of the sports internet, and the commentary around it was split between people who thought Taurasi was right to set expectations, and people who thought she was underestimating what Clark had already shown. The practice court was about to give everyone their answer. The first drill of the morning was a 5-on-5 half-court possession drill where the defense is allowed to be physical and the offense has to earn every single look at the basket. No easy catches, no comfortable catches. The defense makes the offensive player work for every inch of space, and the expectation at this level is that you absorb that physicality and still make the right decision faster than any defense can process. Clark came off a screen on the second possession of the drill, received the ball with Taurasi's hand immediately in her face. Took one hard dribble left to clear the space she needed and released a pull-up three-pointer from 26 feet that went through the net without touching the rim. The gym did not explode. It went quiet in a very specific way. The quiet of people recalibrating in real time. The quiet of experienced players processing something they did not expect and filing it immediately. Taurasi did not say anything. She just looked at the ball as it came through the net and then looked at Clark and then looked back at the coach running the drill. The drill kept going. Clark drilled 2 more from similar range before the possession set was finished. The veterans started talking to each other between possessions in the low clipped sentences that players use when they are genuinely recalibrating their assessment of someone in real time. Oh, she didn't argue the physicality. She didn't complain about the hand in her face or the body contact on the screens. She just locked in and did what she does best. The composure was the thing that got the veterans the most, because composure at that level, in that room, in front of those players, is something that takes most people time to develop. You have to be in that environment for a while before the weight of it stops affecting your decision making. Clark played like she had been coming to this gym for 3 years. Her reads were fast, her release was clean, her decisions under pressure, which is every decision in a Team USA practice, because there is no possession that does not have pressure attached to it, were correct at a rate that made the veterans stop pretending they were not watching her closely. They were watching her closely. Everybody in that gym was watching her closely by the end of the first drill set. The transition drill is where things escalated into the territory that the coaching staff is still talking about. The drill runs a live 2-on-1 break where the offensive players have a numbers advantage, but the defender can choose to either stop the ball or help on the roll, and the offense has to read the choice correctly and execute instantly. At the national team level, the defenders in this drill are playing it genuinely. They are not softening their contest to let the drill run cleanly. Aja Wilson was the defender on the rotation that produced the moment every single person in the building saw. Wilson is arguably the best player in the world at this moment in time. A 2-time league MVP whose defensive instincts are among the sharpest in professional basketball, and she read the developing play perfectly, shifting her weight to cut off what should have been the clear passing lane to the rolling player. She had the read right. Any other player in that gym throws the pass into coverage and the drill ends with a turnover. Clark had already seen the shift. Before Wilson's weight transfer was even complete, Clark had changed the target of the pass, threading a bounce pass through a window that Wilson had not closed yet because she was still in the process of closing the previous one, and the rolling player caught it clean at the rim for an uncontested layup. Wilson turned around and said something to the player beside her. The player beside her was already nodding. Nobody had to explain what had just happened. The pass had arrived before the defense finished deciding where the danger was, but the drama didn't end there. Because the next possession in the same drill, Wilson was guarding Clark directly with no help coming, a one-on-one situation designed to test whether Clark could create her own shot against the league's best individual defender without any advantage to lean on. Wilson is 6 feet tall, long, experienced, and deeply committed to the craft of individual defense. She had a full possession to lock in on Clark and nothing else to think about. Clark took the ball at the top of the arc, pump faked once to get Wilson's feet off the floor, and when Wilson came down, Clark stepped back 2 steps and pulled up from 28 feet with Wilson's hand closing on her face. The shot went in. Wilson put both hands on her hips. That gesture, both hands on the hips, is the international language of a competitor who has just watched something genuinely excellent happen against them and does not have an immediate answer for it. She did not have an immediate answer for it. The coaching staff called a brief pause in the drill, not to correct anything, to acknowledge what had just happened. The veterans on the bench watching the drill rotate exchanged a look that you only exchange when something occurs that changes the terms of the conversation you have been having about a player. The conversation that had been circulating before Clark arrived at camp was the standard conversation that surrounds any high-profile newcomer to a national team environment. How would she adjust? Would the speed of the game at this level affect her timing? And would the physicality change her decision making? Would the veterans make her earn every single thing? The answer to all of those questions was arriving in real time, and the answer was delivering a bounce pass through a closing window to a rolling player against a Wilson Red. And it was pulling up from 28 feet over a Wilson closeout and watching it go in, and it was doing both of those things inside the first hour of the first serious practice session with the group. The adjustment period that veterans had been anticipating was not appearing. The thing they expected to take weeks was not taking weeks. It was not even taking the morning. And now another doubter enters the spotlight. Because Breanna Stewart had been quietly competitive with Clark in the earlier individual shooting drills, I am making a point of matching range and efficiency in a way that communicated clearly that the shooting display was not going to go unanswered by the veterans in the room. Stewart is one of the best players in the world, and she carries herself with the authority of someone who has earned every level she has reached through genuine excellence. She is not the type to let a newcomer run away with the energy of a practice session unchallenged. She hit back-to-back threes in the shooting drill. Clean, deep, effortless. The kind of shots that remind you exactly who you are dealing with when you are dealing with Breanna Stewart. She then looked in Clark's direction with the silent communication of elite competitors acknowledging each other across a drill. Clark caught the look, made eye contact, and on her very next turn in the rotation, she stepped back to the logo 30 feet from the basket and dropped one in without any visible change in her expression or her routine. The gym did that quiet thing again. Stewart nodded once, not conceding anything, acknowledging something. There is a difference, and the people in that room understood the difference immediately. She didn't celebrate. She didn't gesture at the crowd that was not there. She didn't try to make it into a moment beyond what it was. She just caught the ball from the rebounder and got ready for the next repetition, because that is who Caitlin Clark is in practice environments. The emotion that the viewer feels watching the clips is not the emotion she displays on the floor. She is locked in and quiet and relentlessly precise, and the composure is not a performance. It is just how she operates when the competition is at the level she wants it to be, which is always as high as possible, which is why the national team practice gym is exactly the environment she had been waiting to walk into. The drill that ended the morning session and produced the moment that the veterans went home talking about was a full court live defense drill where the offense has to advance against a press, and the defense is allowed to be as aggressive as the game demands. Clark handled the ball against the press, and the defender assigned to her was a veteran with 15 years of experience making ball handlers uncomfortable in exactly this situation. The press came hard. Clark saw it before it fully developed, pushed the ball to the right side where the press had the weakest recovery angle. And then in a single motion that lasted less than 2 seconds, she found a player cutting back door on the opposite side of the court with a cross-court pass that traveled the width of the court and arrived in exactly the right place at exactly the right moment for a catch and finish. The pass covered 45 feet in the air and landed in a space that was roughly the size of a doorway. The finishing player caught it without breaking stride and converted at the rim. The entire defensive unit stopped where they were. One of the veterans on the sideline said something that the people close to her heard, and that quickly became the phrase everyone associated with the practice session. She said she sees things that haven't happened yet. That is the most precise description of what Caitlin Clark does with a basketball that anyone has produced. She sees things that have not happened yet. She delivers the ball to where a teammate is going to be rather than where they are, which means that by the time the defense identifies the pass target, the target has already received the ball and is already in the act of finishing. The veteran who said it has been in basketball long enough to recognize the difference between a player who reads the defense and a player who anticipates it, and what Clark does is something closer to the second category than the first. You read what has already happened. You anticipate what is about to happen. Clark anticipates every single veteran in that gym had been around the game long enough to know exactly how rare that quality is at any level and how completely it changes what a team looks like when it is built around a player who has it. If there is one thing that practice made undeniably clear, it is this: coming for Caitlin Clark comes with consequences. Just ask.